Well, viewers, those are the headlines and our top focus. The United Nations has stated that tens of thousands of civilians have fled their homes as fighting in Sudan spreads eastward from Darfur to North Kordofan. According to the UN's International Organization for Migration, around 36,800 people have fled 5 localities in the region located just a few hundred kilometers east of Darfur. The mass displacement follows last week's capture of El-Fasher, the Sudanese army's last major stronghold in Darfur by the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. The United Nations has warned of worsening humanitarian conditions as civilians flee advancing RSF units and renewed clashes with Sudan's military. Aid agencies, meanwhile, say that the latest violence risks further destabilizing the country's center and cutting off vital supply routes to Khartoum and other urban areas. In the meantime, Sudan's ambassador to Egypt, Emeleddin Mustafa Adawi, has accused the Rapid Support Forces of committing war crimes in the country's North Darfur state. The diplomat has also accused the United Arab Emirates of helping the RSF paramilitary group in the ongoing civil war. The Gulf state has denied any such claims. Adawi's remarks have followed an earlier statement by the Sudanese Prime Minister Kamil Idris, who has told the media that the RSF should be tried in international courts. The calls for action come a week after the RSF seized the capital of North Darfur, El-Fasher, after an 18-month siege resulting in thousands of reported civilian deaths. The city was the Sudanese army's last stronghold in the region. Joining us on the broadcast is Ayanuga Olugbenga. Paul is a public affairs analyst joining us from Lagos in Nigeria. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. At the outset, it seems that the already delicate situation and the dire humanitarian crisis is worsening. There are reports coming in from the United Nations that around 36,800 people have fled their homes, even as the fighting is spreading eastwards from Darfur into North Kordofan. What's required urgently to address these humanitarian needs? Because on one hand, we're seeing the UN put out these statistics, and on the other, we're also seeing the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres warning against international intervention at this point.
Good morning. All right. The situation in Sudan, Darfur region, requires a lot of concerted and truthful effort. The issue with the government now calling RSF as war criminals or tagging them as war criminals and genocide, and also accusing Qatar of arming up the RSF. And for that reason, they are refusing to join the negotiation that ought to have taken place or that is supposed to be taking place in Qatar. Even though Qatar has denied this, but like I've said earlier, all the international players who are paper tigers, who are out protecting their own personal interest rather than truthfully protecting the interest of the people of El-Fasher and the Northern Sudan generally are the major problem, because once these external sponsors who keep supplying arms and ammunition to different warring parties, once they are still in that habit, then there is nothing that can be done to stop them from, to stop them and bring them to the negotiation table. So, for example, I accused the international power players like the US, French, the Chinese government of all playing different role in the regional conflict taking place there, because all of these are just battle for resources disguised as battle for patriotism or whatever disguise they call it. But until these nations, truthfully, the external players, because we know that the dimension in the war in Sudan has to deal on one part with the white Arabs and the indigenous Sudanese population there. And so if the government is accusing that RSF is being supplied by the Qatari government, and the Qatari government have been fingered in the issue with Hamas in the conflict between Israel and Gaza at that time. I don't know how I would want to say I do not believe the government, because these are people on the ground, and even without them being on the ground or making this accusation, it's always easy. 90% of all conflicts in human history, especially in the recent time, in the last 100 years, is usually sponsored by external interests who will look for one or two internal interests and prop them up, make them look like, oh, we are trying to defend your interest. Unfortunately, by the time the situation escalates, the internal interest, though they have realized they are fully, but they could not go back because their hands are already tied. And so I would look for a situation where the Sudanese government, despite the accusation against Qatar, will still find a way to, create a negotiation dialogue. They can ask for change of venue. They can ask for, change of the negotiating parties, so that more neutral people who really want the interest of the Sudanese to be protected will be in the team to negotiate the peace. But peace is needed as soon as possible.
Indeed. In fact, this is their ambassador has in fact raised claims against the United Arab Emirates, and a lot of people are questioning the UAE's agricultural investments into Sudan to address its food insecurity. There have been, in fact, recent major agricultural investments that focus mainly on animal feed, such as alfalfa and livestock. In fact, the international holding company, the UAE's largest listed corporation, and Janan Investment are farming more than 50,000 hectares in Sudan. Abu Hamid's farming project, of course, covers another 162,000 hectares of cultivated land. So all of this is definitely being questioned. I request you to stay on with us as we're tracking some other very crucial developments. US President Donald Trump has warned that the United States could deploy troops or launch airstrikes in Nigeria to stop what he's called the killing of Christians in the West African nation. Speaking aboard Air Force One, Trump has stated that US military action could be possible, claiming that Christians were being killed in record numbers. His comments have followed a very lengthy Truth Social post in which he threatened to cut off all US aid to Nigeria and go guns a-blazing to wipe out Islamic terrorists. Nigeria has responded rather cautiously, stating that it would welcome US assistance against Islamist insurgents such as the Boko Haram operating in the northeast, only if its sovereignty is respected. Presidential advisor Daniel Walla has stated that it would not be diplomatically appropriate for the United States to take unilateral action without Nigeria's consent, while dismissing Trump's rhetoric as not literal. Christian leaders in northern Nigeria have expressed appreciation for Trump's concern, but have warned against foreign interference in the country's internal affairs. Nigeria, viewers, is home to over 200 million people and 200 ethnic groups. It remains divided between a largely Muslim north and Christian south. Islamist groups such as Boko Haram and the Islamic State West Africa province have killed thousands over the past 15 years. The experts, of course, debate that most of those who've lost their lives are Muslims themselves. Still with us on the broadcast is Mr. Ayanuga Olugbenga Paul. He's joining us from Lagos. Interesting developments coming in because Trump had earlier, during his first term, designated Nigeria as a country of concern. This was undone by Joe Biden in 2021. Now, the U.S. House of Representatives Appropriations Committee's fiscal 2026 National Security Appropriations Bill has included increased funding for international religious freedom programs and support for programs supporting communities in Nigeria targeted by extremist violence. At the outset, I wanted to understand from you, how are local Nigerians viewing what Trump has stated? Is this being seen as a bid by Trump to appease his own MAGA base at home, or a threat by Donald Trump that he will follow up on?
Okay, so it depends on who you are asking, because the message is being taken by different sector of the Nigerian populace differently. So for people in southwest Nigeria, we are taking the threat as an invasion of our national sovereignty. For people in the southeast who want the government in power to fail at all costs, they are taking it as a messiah coming to help them. For people in the north who are truly suffering this persecution, they are also happy for this call, but they are with mixed reaction, as some of them really do not want uh, an American boots on the ground in Nigeria, but they would want some semblance of a threat that would allow the Nigerian government to sit tight. But we need to understand the situation that brought us to where we are right now. So, what Donald Trump described Nigeria as a country of particular concern, or because of the issue of religious intolerance, there are a whole gamut of people to blame. Personally, I do not believe whatever the American government, says, even though I am happy that the President Donald Trump made that statement, as it will force our own leader to sit right and do the right thing. But for me, as a student of history, who knows that it is dangerous to be an enemy of America, but it is fatal to be a friend of America. Every country who has been a friend of America in the past, America has gone ahead to destroy them. America destroyed Iraq, who is a friend of America. Even Iran was a friend of America. In the 60s, before the issue in 1979, there are only few places in the world where the American dollar was printed. And the only place outside the US soil where American dollar is printed is Iran. But today they are worst enemy because of how America usually treats its friend in the guise of trying to be friends with them. The same thing, America destroyed Libya when they first, brought Libya close and tried to make friends and say, oh, we want peace and all the rest. And the moment Libya, relaxes its guard, America destroyed Libya. And for that reason, I do not want America's intervention in my country. The only kind of intervention that I want is sanctions for known terrorist sponsors. Let America and Europe ban known terrorist sponsors from entering America, from entering Europe. Let them ban all their children and send all their children back home, and ban them from entering America and Europe. Yes, I agree with that. But say you want to put your boot on the ground, we know that you, America, are having issues with your supply of rare earth mineral. You are having issues with your oil supply, and your economy is having issues as a result of your constant tariff and fight with China. In every world games in the last few years, America has lost to China. And so America is looking for new frontiers, a quasi-colonial territory that they can control and take out their resources. And they know Nigeria is ripe for that, and that is the excuse they want to use in entering the country. But our own government too have failed in that at the time when they were supposed to face the problem head on before the cancer metastasized as it is right now, they were playing politics. It is in Nigeria you see criminal elements, especially of the Fulani stock, who will kill, massacre people, yet the government will say they want to negotiate with terrorists who are killing and maiming people. Meanwhile, in every of the situation, they are ignoring the victims of this situation, not taking care of it. There are people in IDP camps for the last 10 years within their own country territorial space. So if and the government is not doing enough, and to worsen the situation, when this present administration came into power, even though this present administration was not the one that started the issue, but when they came into power, they were how do I say it? they were complicit by appointing known terrorist apologists as Minister of Defense. The former governor of Sudan State, Matawale, was appointed as the Minister of Defense. Even the National Security Advisors, they were all talking about negotiating with terrorists, reintegrating terrorists into the Nigerian army. No sane country in the world negotiates with terrorists. Japan doesn't negotiate with terrorists. I know India does not negotiate with terrorists. Israel does not negotiate with terrorists. Those are sane countries in the world, and you will never see any terrorist attack India and go scot-free. India will go with all its might and crush them. You will never see any terrorist attack Japan and go scot-free. You never see any terrorist attack Israel and go scot-free. So they can think about attacking other countries, but they will always think twice, think thrice, think 10 times before they attack any of the three countries and many other countries who are of the stance of no negotiation with terrorists, as I've quoted. So that is what the Nigerian government needs to do. The last thing they need to do is to allow citizens to carry weapons. You can't make your citizens sitting ducks and not allowing ordinary law-abiding citizens to have access to guns. Meanwhile, terrorists have easy access to guns. At the end of the day, before police come to help in the rescue effort, the terrorists would have committed their crime, they would have gone, and nobody is protecting this civilian. And you can't take a knife into a gunfight for person. So I believe that this call by the Trump administration is good if they only remain it at sanctions for terrorist apologists, terrorist sponsors, and even government officials who are not doing their job very well. But saying they want to put boots on the ground in Nigeria, I think they are going to meet a lot of fierce pushback, and I hope that that will not result into a bigger civil war or conflict in the nation. And that is what I know that the U.S. wants. They want the country to be destabilized so that they can be taking our resources secretly, like they continue to take oil from Libya till tomorrow. But we don't want that in our country.
Indeed, sir. With that, I would like to thank you. Of course, as you pointed out, political stability, political will within Nigeria, of course, is important to ensure that it manages to stand up and address its own terror concerns internally. There have been murmurs of a coup taking place or being nearly successful recently as well, which has resulted in the change in military leadership. But of course, a US military footprint in West Africa was significantly diminished when about 1,000 troops withdrew from Niger last year. Of course, the Sahel region being in focus. With that, viewers, we're shifting focus to more news coming in. We're now learning that